Welcome to the Not Superheroes Just Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be present for our kids, and combat generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing in the barbecue is. Hello, I am Sean Laurie. I hope you guys are doing well. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. I appreciate the support like always. And I'm excited, y'all. I have one of my good buddies, man, Damon White, as man, like I don't know, bro. It's been a minute, right? Since we spoke, huh?
Yeah, probably like 2 years.
Yeah. I think
Probably
it's,
like 2 years since we spoke in
yeah,
person. I mean, online
yeah,
comments
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. But
But
yeah,
we haven't really chopped it up, yeah.
no, no.
Um, so yeah, man. So I like to do icebreakers. So before we get into this, I like to do icebreakers, man. So,
Okay.
um, what I'll ask you, just something light, since football is now here, right?
Yes.
Football is now here, and I know you are a big Broncos fan, to what I
Yes.
remember. So,
Unfortunately, yeah.
so I will ask you, what is your expectations, and what did you think when it first happened when you guys took Bo Nix? Because I'm not a fan personally, but what was your thing?
Um, I'm actually I thought Bo Nix was a good pick considering where we were picking and
Okay,
our needs.
okay,
But if you ask me what my expectations are, I literally have none. I think I think if we win 4 games, it'd be a miracle.
okay,
We're in a division with Harbaugh and Herbert,
yeah,
Mahomes.
yeah,
We might be able to steal one from the Raiders because they're not
yeah,
that good this year.
yeah.
But I just think as an organization, we failed miserably over the last 3 years. So it's
Mm.
going to be some tough sledding for the next couple, I think, for
Yeah,
us. Yeah.
yeah. Hey, but look, I appreciate the honesty. You could be like, look, we gonna get 9 games. So
I'm not delusional, bro. I'm not living in a fantasy world. No, ain't no way.
he's like, no, I don't see it. I don't.
Ain't no way, bro.
Hey,
No.
if Bo Nix is the next Mahomes or something like that, I guess it's possible, right?
Oh, man, please. He might be the next, you know. He ain't the next Mahomes. Okay, that's what he ain't. I like him. Like I said, he's decent. He might be a mid-tier quarterback. We're definitely going to need to get more pieces around him.
Yeah,
And he's also kind of older, right? I think he's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
25,
He's like
6,
24,
26.
25. Yeah, yeah. He's up there.
Yeah, so it's like he's not a quarterback of the future. He's a band-aid. That's the way I look at it. So
Yeah, yeah. I like that, man. So with that being said, y'all, this is a topic that I know as well, doing it myself, but I want to speak, or I wanted you to be on, bro, because I know you have a good idea on this subject, and that is the coach dad dynamic, right?
yes,
That
yeah,
comes with it. And that's why I want to segue into the football, right? Because you actually do coach your son in football, man, and that is definitely not an easy task. But I would like to ask you, bro, how has being a dad influenced you on your coaching style?
Oh man, that's a great question because I actually started coaching before my son was playing.
Okay.
Um, I started coaching when he was born, like literally about 5 months after he was born.
Oh wow.
Because a lot of factors happened, but basically, I was in a situation where my wife was an administrator in a youth organization, and they needed
Hmm.
coaches, and so I
Hmm.
kind of stepped up. It was like a last minute situation where the coach had he had to step out.
Yeah.
So they had like 2 weeks to find a coach, or the team was going to fold. So I said, okay, I'll jump in there and do it. I played. I know something about the game. I'll go in there and help. And then from that point, I got addicted. It became
Mm.
something I just loved to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think because of that, because I didn't, there's kind of two ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get into it because of my kid, where a lot of parents, they get into it because of their child.
Yeah.
And we know they have different reasons for that, right? Different
Yeah.
motivations. Some of them is genuine, like, oh, my son loves this.
Yeah.
This is what I want to come help, right? Other, they're trying to live their vicariously through the child, right?
Yes.
And that
That's
can kind
good.
of create a crazy dynamic. Um, Whereas for me, it was okay. I was doing it to help some other kids, not
Yeah.
specifically a child, and that really was a benefit for me when I did get a chance to coach my child, if that
Mm.
makes sense. Because
Yeah.
I never came in it from like, oh, I never had a daddy ball perspective when I was coaching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I had almost 5 years of going through those experiences to know what not to do, what to do, to see other dads coaching
Yeah.
their children and see some of the pitfalls and how the dynamic that created. Um,
Yeah.
and I had some good examples and bad examples that I could draw from, right? So
Yeah.
that pretty much prepared me, I think, to have a pretty good idea of how to coach your child. And then even then, when he started playing, I waited till he was a little bit older. Um, I felt like he needed to experience coaching in general before it came from me.
Yeah.
Um, because and I tell this to a lot of parents, if you know, obviously situations change or what have you, everybody's in different situations, right? But if you can, I always tell parents, listen, let somebody else coach your child first. I don't care if it's when he's 6, 7, whatever it is. So they understand, because coaching can be hard for the child to even understand, right?
Yeah.
Um, that dynamic of being told what to do and the consequences for that and all that. And when it's coming from his parent first, I don't know if he understands. Okay, you're not dad now; you're the coach, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And so that can cause a lot of. I've seen that cause friction.
Yeah.
Whereas if he's already been coached before, I think it's easier for him to understand that okay, this is coaching. This ain't just my dad being mad at me. This
Yeah.
is a part of this team dynamic we're in, as opposed to, Dad, why are you being hard on me, or why are you, why is your tone like this? It ain't like this at home, or that type of deal. So that benefited me a lot, um, as far as kind of getting a good understanding of how to coach my child.
I like that, bro. Yeah, because um, similar thing where it wasn't as long. It was maybe like 3 4 months. My son was playing for a different team. I was coaching at DBA. Shout out to DBA, but I was coaching over there, and I went in there for the same reason. Like I was more so, hey, I like what they're doing. Hey, I enjoy coaching. I enjoy being with the kids, as you know too, working with the youth um, at Relevant and things like that. Right, that's what I was doing, so I enjoyed it. And being able to make sure I actually went the other way, bro. At times when my son did come, I was having him come off the bench. Where it got to the point where the other coaches, was telling me like, bro, like no, he needs to start. But I was so worried about I don't want people thinking daddy ball. I don't,
Right, right,
I was so worried about that um, my boy Lamar actually was telling me like you're actually doing more harm than good because you're kind of restricting him, right? Because you're so worried about daddy ball. He's like, hey, let him play. Like, yes, coach him up, but let him play. You ain't doing nothing wrong. So that was like for me, that was a hard thing to kind of balance, bro. So that's why I wanted to ask you, like, how do you balance that role of coaching dad, especially when you're coaching your own child?
Oh, there's a couple aspects. So don't let me forget there's two of these, but I want to start with the first is,
Okay.
again, having him play for somebody else first.
Yeah.
And my son, I didn't actually coach him for the first time till he was 9. So he
Okay.
had already been playing youth football for 3 years,
Okay.
flag for 1 year and tackle for 2.
Okay.
And even in that capacity, it was a situation again where they needed a coach, because I always coached older kids. I personally like coaching older kids
Yeah.
because I can give more information. It's a different vibe, right?
Yeah. You could be a little bit harder too if you need
You
to.
can definitely be harder. First of all, I don't consider myself a hard coach.
Yeah.
I consider myself a relational coach.
Okay.
And so I'm not really a yeller.
Yeah.
I'm more of that whistle is my discipline, right? So
Yeah.
we have a hill to run, we have laps to give, we have that.
Yeah.
I'm more of an encourager coach, relationship coach.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really my concern, but it was going on your point. Can he um, shine a light on himself without me being around, right? So that's another reason I let him kind of do his thing under other
Yeah.
coaches first. So then when I did I came in as an assistant, even though I've been head coaching. But like I
Yeah.
said, it needed the head coach. The head coach was basically a baseball coach, and he just volunteered to help. So he didn't really know X's and O's of football. So he's like, "Hey, you should come help me out." So I was like, "Okay," and so that helped me a lot because he shielded me because he was the head coach, right? So I
Yeah.
could just be like, maybe Mike should get in right there.
Yeah.
Or maybe, that helped too. But also the fact that he's already been established, he's a pretty decent player.
Yeah.
So I didn't have those pitfalls. Now, I did that for that 1 year. And then again, I went back to 14-year-olds. And I didn't coach him again until he was literally 13.
Okay.
So I coached him his last 2 years of youth football. And again, by that time, he had been pretty established. Now, I was on the AU circuit, so there were a lot of good. And football's different than basketball. So, right?
Yes. Yes.
Basketball, like, I don't even know how I would have dealt with it in basketball because one player could be such a pivotal, right? He could carry a team, he could be, etc.
Yeah.
Where in football, if I got 5, 6 good players, I could use all 5, 6 good players.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not like, and I was never that, oh, my son has to be a running back dad. I was never that. So I always taught him, to be a player, right?
Yeah.
So then when he was older, it was kind of easy, to be honest, because I could just plug him in over here at wide receiver. And if this kid was a great running back, I'd give that kid his shine. If this kid was a good receiver, okay, now, Michael, you go play this, right?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of able to, and I think a lot of, if they're good, if they're really in it for the right reasons, right? If they're really in it, okay, I want to develop kids. I'm not just in it for my kid.
Yeah.
I think football is kind of easy because, like I said, you could plug and play them in different positions, and everybody will get their shine. Basketball's a little different, right? A little bit more complicated if you have a really good son and you're on a team, and maybe there's only one other good player, right, or something like that, or even maybe even worse if they're all good.
Yeah.
Right? How do I? So I don't really have personal experience with that. I just always say, have a conversation with your son first and foremost. Get an understanding of what your role is. And I told my son that many times, listen, I'm coaching a team. I'm not coaching just you.
Yeah.
So my decision making has to be around the team, right? And I've always been very, very, very clear about separating. When I'm on the field, I'm Coach White. When we're at home, or literally as soon as practice ends, I'm Dad. Right? And so he has this understanding of that, okay, on the field, my dad's going to do what's best for the team.
Yeah.
And then I can come home and I can console you, I can hype you up, I can do whatever I need to do as a dad when I'm off the field. And that's always seemed to work with him because he even I used to coach him in high school, right? So it's always seemed to work that we have this kind of separate identity, or I present a separate identity when I'm coaching as opposed to when I'm at home. And so then it's easier for him to accept the decisions, right? Because then I'm literally just making the best decision for the team. So if he's the best player for the job, well, I'm going to pick him. If there's somebody else that's better, I'm going to pick them. And I'm going to tell him, you need to improve on this or that if you want to be in that position. But right now you can play this position, right? And so that's pretty much, how I handle those type of situations. And fortunately, and thank God that he's just really been a natural athlete and a good enough player where people haven't questioned it. It's like, okay, he should be out there. He should be doing this, et cetera, et cetera.
I like that. Now, how do you, because, and maybe it's different, but like you say, you're more of a teacher in a sense. You're not more of a yeller or nothing like that when you're coaching. Now, obviously, you'll get on them, but it's not going to be necessarily screaming and all this extra stuff necessarily, right? Which I'm similar. Like I'm not more. Every now and then, of course, I'm gonna get on you a little bit. For the most part, though, I feel like it's not necessary. Like just do what needs to be done, right? But how do you do that with the players and with your son, as far as showing that compassion, right? But at the same time, getting on them to push them. Like, how do you have that balance?
It's a great question. I kind of one of the things I leaned on early in coaching, and it's I don't know if you've ever heard this from anybody before, because every time I tell coaches this, they're like, "That's what you do." I use sales.
Mm.
When I was in sales, I did sales for almost 15 years. So I learned about overcoming objections and presenting. And so when I coach kids, I use three things. First thing I do is I affirm, always first. I don't care what they did, right?
Yeah.
So, in football, now again, basketball is a little bit different, but football, there's
Yeah.
like four things to a good play: alignment, assignment, technique, effort, right? So, in general, when a kid makes a mistake, he's done one of those right, right? He's done something
Yeah.
right. Either he's played with effort, he lined up right, he knew the play, right? So the first thing I always do is encourage them on what they did right, whatever that was. So, hey, that's great you lined up in the right position, or great you knew your assignment, or I saw the effort there that you did. However, then that second part of the statement is I give him what he should have done, the correction, right?
Yeah.
However, you should probably play with more effort there. We gotta get more effort there. Or you forgot your assignment though, or you should have done this when you did that, right? And then I finish that by asking a question. I just simply ask the question. So, do you think you could do better next time? Do you think you got that? Is there anything you're not getting from what I'm saying to you? And sticking to that formula does a couple things. It makes the criticism more conversational,
Yeah.
right? And they're immediately their guard is down because you give the immediate encouragement to start off with, and it also helps me because I have these steps, so I'm not just flying off the handle, or I'm
Yeah.
not getting over emotional because I'm always kind of sticking to the script, of how, like, and even when I have coaches meetings, I even when it's a new coach or even some people that have coaching experience, when they first come to coach with me, I give them the script. I say, this is how
Yeah.
we address stuff. We always encourage first. Um, and another thing is I feel like really celebrating the accomplishments all the time
Yeah.
so that when you do have these issues that you have to deal with, the negatives, right? It's the weight, the balance is okay. Well, this coach is always on my side, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, if he's telling me this, I really must need to work on this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to some, and really with the dads, it's sad, kind of. It's really sad, Sean, when you see these parents where it's so. I actually got one I'm dealing with now, an assistant coach, where he's obviously harder on his child, excuse me, than any of the other children.
Mm.
And I think that is so detrimental.
Yeah.
Um, just over the years, seeing how that plays out, um, sure, it might make him into a great player because he's playing out of fear of failure, right?
Yeah.
But the damage to the relationship,
Mm.
I've seen it. I've just seen it play out. I've seen it. I have a friend of mine whose son right now is playing at Butler, D1 basketball, and I've known him literally since he was 6 years old. So I've seen the entire process, right?
Yeah.
And now their relationship is just in shambles. Even
Mm.
though they both reached the goal,
Yeah.
right? The son wanted to be a D1 player. The dad wanted to help him get to be a D1 player. They reached the goal, but the constant, it just fractured the relationship. So now that he's actually done it, right? It's like, I'm glad I got away from you. And they don't communicate hardly. And I have conversations with the dad where he's just like, and unfortunately, we're all a bunch of flawed people.
Yeah. Of
Um,
course.
Even now, I don't think he gets it because he's like,
Mm.
well, I helped him do this, and like he owes me, and I'm like, that's transactional, bro, and
Yeah.
you don't want a transactional relationship with your child.
Mm.
That's not what you want. You want an unconditional relationship, and whether in your heart you feel, I can't invalidate your feelings. I mean, you just been, in the course of a kid's school career, right? It'll be thousands of dollars, training, equipment, camps,
Yeah.
clinics, the hours and hours, right? So a part of the human side of you is like, man, I invested in you. But like I tell them, was like, were you not going to invest in him?
Mm.
No matter what he did, right? If you wanted to be in theater, if you wanted to be whatever it is, you're going to still that's your child.
Yeah.
So I got 4 other children, and the other 3 don't play sports.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like I still had to pour into them too. So their end game was never going to be an NIL deal, right?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it was going to be them having success in life.
Mm.
So that's the bar, and that
Yeah.
should be the bar. Like,
Yeah.
am I doing what I can for my child
Mm.
so that he will have success in life? Period. And am I doing it in a way that is still relational and not transactional,
I
right?
like that.
And so that to me is a line we have to walk as a father / coach.
Yeah.
Is making sure it's still relational. But I would encourage that for any coach,
Yeah.
whether it's your son or not, right?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, I know for me for a fact now over the years, because now this is going into my 17th year, right? You become a surrogate father for a lot of people, a lot of kids, man. Like, and some have fathers in the home, some don't. But it's you're like this other fatherly figure in their life, and so you got to take that and value that, and maximize that, right? If your goal is again for the right reasons, I'm out here. I tell my parents, even at the beginning of every season, I did this in high school, I did it with the youth. I'm not sacrificing character building for winning.
Mm.
I'm not sacrificing, building this kid up for the sake of some trophy, right?
Mm.
That's not what we're doing here. And if that's your goal, then everything should be relational. It should be, not just, line up, blow the whistle. It's also, how was your day? What happened to you today in school? How was your weekend? Noticing when that kid is, his countenance is different that day, right? And say, hey, what's wrong? You good? And pulling them aside and having conversations. And, even when I played, you probably know this, when you play, there are certain coaches, like I said earlier, that you responded to out of fear, right? Just out of straight fear. Like, I don't want to get cussed out. I don't have to do laps. So I'm out here, right? But then there were certain coaches that you played hard for them because you kind of loved them, right? You're like, man, this guy right here, I don't want to disappoint him.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And so I think when I played better when I was playing for that reason, right?
Mm.
Even just as far as the play part of it, I perform better because when you're playing out of fear, you're also kind of nervous, right? You're a little on edge, right? Whereas if you're
Yeah.
playing because you have this strong desire to please this person, I think you just perform better. And then, like I said, that person also has an impact or has a gateway into you outside of football.
Yeah. I
So
like that.
or any sport, whatever sport you're in.
No, and then what you said too, because that's something I struggle with a little bit. Where, and my son pointed out, my wife pointed out, right, where it was like at times I'm getting on my son about, hey, you did this, right? Understanding he's still learning, but I'm getting on him about, hey, you did this, and he's like, well, you didn't get on this, you didn't get on this player, right? And I was like, dang, you know what, that's right. And so I realized that too, as far as, hey, you know what, like I told you, I was having him come off the bench, right? So I'm like overdoing it at times, and I had to realize, hey, you know what? Let me celebrate you too, because I was
Yeah,
celebrating before, like when I wasn't coaching them, right? But then when I was coaching them, I'm so worried about I don't want this parent saying this or whatever the case is. I'm over here almost overdoing it. So I was like, let me celebrate you too, and I realized with that, like, still, he's fine with me getting on him, but me celebrating him, I think, also helped a lot. And now he's just
yes,
playing freely. He's not in his head as far as, okay, he's my coach, but he's my dad too. But dang, I messed up here, and you know what? I can't mess up over here, but they can mess up, right? And all this extra stuff I realized like, yeah, let me correct that. So I like what you said, bro, because that's something that I learned. I learned it pretty quickly too, but I learned it like, yeah, this isn't the best way to go about it, because I don't want my relationship with him to be messed up down the line, because that's the most important thing. So
Absolutely.
um, I like that, bro. And then I wanted to ask you too, man, because you said something that really uh, stuck out to me. Like you said, man, like, you basically, in a sense, like another father or a father figure in a sense, right, with them. So how do you, because like you said, you have those relationships with them, you start to really know them. So how do you kind of keep the players motivated when like they may be struggling with some personal things that's off the field? You kind of sense them, like how, or are you more so like, man, we're not even worried about take a break or whatever the case is. Like, how do you basically help them when you could tell, man, something's off with them? Oh, okay, I know something must be going on at home or at school or whatever the case is.
Well, um, first of all, you let them vent. I think a lot of times, especially at certain ages, I would say between like, you know, preteen to like 14, 15, those ages, you know, and it's two scenarios, right? There's the one, okay, I got problems at home, but I got a dad,
Yeah.
right? And maybe those problems are maybe it's me messing up, maybe it's the home life. We don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but because I don't have this open line of communication with my dad, or I feel repercussion, or I just need somewhere to vent this, right? To a fatherly figure. And then there's the kids that don't have a dad, right,
Yeah.
at all, right? And so those people is like, I just need a man to tell me how to deal with certain situations, right? Because I feel my mama don't understand. Right? My
Yeah.
mom just
Yeah.
don't get it. I've heard that. My mom just don't get it. My mom just don't get it. And so number one is just letting them, again, being that father figure, being open to being transparent and open and saying you can talk to me and let them get it out. A lot of times they just need to get it out, and then they're fine. The
Yeah.
reason they're looking the way they're looking is because they're internalizing all this stuff, and they don't have no way to get it out and no one to help them sort it out. Right? That's
Yeah.
one. And secondly, just football is always second. The sport
Yeah.
is always second to me. So it's not about how do I keep you motivated when you're going through something. No, it's how do we get you through what you're going through.
Mm.
And if that means today you're running sprints today, if that today you need some time off, if that means I need to make a couple phone calls, and check on you. If I gotta have a conversation with your parents, um, I had a situation where I got two that I can tell you real quickly. I had a situation where a kid on my team's mom committed suicide,
Wow.
and this is the middle of the season, bro. Middle of the season, and just being there for the kid, telling them, listen, I don't expect you to play, right? I don't want you to play. I need you to get your emotions right. I'm here for you. Here's my number, right? I have another kid that I'm dealing with right now whose dad was in hospice. Um, and it's just, being, being available for him and letting him know, listen, football isn't the main thing. You're the main thing.
Mm.
And so I want to make sure that whatever you're dealing with in life, we can deal with it together, right? And I'm here for you. And if this thing that we have isn't just based on how you perform on the field or how you perform on a practice, we're a
Yeah.
family. And while all my teams, that's always one of my big things is football is family. We're a family out here. We spend so much time together. I mean, really, in high school. In high school, you're with them through video, through film, workouts, practice. It's 4 hours a day. So they're literally part of your family. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so I emphasize that with him. So with any family member, if they're going through stuff, we got to make it about that.
Yeah.
And then everything else comes later, bro. And that's the way I deal with it. And I really think that's the way any good coach, again, if they're in it for the right reason.
Yes.
That's just so important because there's just, you know, And that's why I still do it. Like even now, I don't have a kid on my youth teams. I coach the youth teams, and I don't have no kid on the team, no family member. But I do it because I believe we need coaches that are in it for the right reason, right? And so, if you're in it for the right reason, it'll always be about that kid's well-being, mentally, emotionally, all of that first, and then football second. And really, you know, when they're happy and content, then they are the best versions of a football player on the field. They're able to focus, right? They're able to get
Yeah.
into the game. They're able to be a leader on the team. They're able to do all these things because there's not these underlying issues going on with them. And on the other side too, there's a lot of kids that, because I was one of these kids where football allows them to channel their emotion, or any sport, right? Okay. Now I'm out here. I feel when I played football, I felt free.
Yeah.
Those hours that I was out my home situation, out my neighborhood, and I'm over here on this field with my guys, I felt free. And
Yeah.
that was the most fun I had and the most emotionally charged I was, as opposed to there were things that at home were automatic downers and things in my neighborhood that were downers, right? And now I got to go. It was almost like when football practice ended, I was like, practice is
Yeah.
over. I'd
I
rather
got
run more laps, right?
yeah.
So a lot of times the sport itself will be a freeing experience from those issues that child is dealing with, etc. Yeah.
So how, because you're about relationship and really connecting with the kids, and which is great, like, right, like I said, that's the type of coach I feel like I am as well. How do you go about it? How do you help the players, or how do you build that relationship where there is some kids, there is some players, right, where they're reluctant to open up, right?
Yeah.
So how do you kind of, I guess, bridge that gap and be able to connect with them to help them open up?
Um, persistent compassion,
Mm,
persistent communication, um, almost dogged, almost like when you're pursuing a woman, right? When you were young,
yeah,
you're trying to pursue your wife.
yeah,
I was somebody that was borderline. You got to tell me 3 or 4 no's, right?
yeah.
And so with these kids, it's like, yes, there's some that are really guarded and whatever have you, but it's just every day. One of the things I learned early is that I always address all the kids by their name at some point, especially during warm-ups. They first get there as warm-ups. I generally just walk the warm-up line. Hey,
Mm,
Isaac, what's going on today? What's happening, man? Make a comment. Oh, I like those new shoes you got. Oh, you got the new glove. You're observing. You're being observing, looking for opportunities to spark a conversation with them. Don't always be about football, right? Another thing I like to do is when they take breaks. A lot of coaches, the kids take break and the coaches go huddle up over somewhere over here. When the kids take break, I walk by the break. I
mm,
want to hear what they're talking about.
yeah,
And sometimes I'll jump right in. Oh, you like anime? Oh, you like what you know about Goku? Woo, woo, woo. Or
yeah.
this your favorite movie? Or this? Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. And with all my, especially lately, like the last maybe 5 years, 6 years or so,
Mm,
I get on the game with them.
that's dope.
I give my game ID because they always that's what the big thing with the kids, the game, and oh yeah, log in, and everybody. Well, I want to try to be coach, right? And so that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? And so eventually they all open up, and
Mm,
again, I don't know about basketball as much. I guess now because you have AU, so you're almost year round, right?
yeah.
It's hard. So with football, I get them in the spring, and we're together for 7 months. So
Jeez,
even
yeah,
the most button down, reclusive kid at some point is going to open up because
yeah,
we're just together too much, right?
yeah,
And and there's so much stuff going on that eventually you break through the cracks,
yeah,
and it's just what do you do with that, and or are you even looking for the cracks to break through? Because again, a lot of times I've dealt with coaches where it's just strictly about football. It's strictly about the game, right? And those are transactional coaches, right? What can you
yeah,
do for the team? And if you're really good for the team, I might be really cool with you. I might, talk to you more. Or I might whatever. if you're quote unquote a second string player, a bench player, then I'm not really paying you much mind. And unfortunately, there are a lot of coaches that are like that, especially in high school. Especially in high
Yeah.
school. But if you're again you're looking for the cracks, you'll find them. The opportunities will present themselves where you can really build relationships with these kids. And in high school, we do a lot of actual team building. So
Okay.
there's events. There is this year the boys coached the girls in flag, and they did a powder puff game, and that was kind of a big team building event. Um, the trips, and then again, if you play any sport, if you take it anytime you're on the bus, bro, right, the bus ride, that's
Yeah.
where everybody's guard is down, and you can really
Yeah.
have the crazy conversations with your team, kids, and kind of really get to know them and all that too. So
Yeah.
those opportunities definitely present themselves.
I like that, man. So what would you say then, bro, is probably the most rewarding aspect of being a coach slash I guess mentor in a sense, right? To these young athletes, like for you, because like you said, you was doing it before even your son got into it, right? And
Right.
and then you even coached it for a little bit, then you stopped coaching them and you still coaching other kids, then you finally, start coaching him again. So like for you, bro, what would probably be the most rewarding aspect of you being that coach slash mentor?
Oh, that's easy. The daily growth,
Mm,
because especially now, high school again is a little different because and again, I guess it would be depending on this high school, right? But
mm,
my son goes to a really good program, high level football pedigree school, and so most of the players that get to the varsity level, they're pretty much they know what they're doing, right? They're good players, and then it's just about X's and O's and etc. Um, but when you're dealing with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, literally every day you get to go to practice, you're going to see somebody grow. It might be just these two players a day. It might be the whole team one time, but you'll see growth, and that's the reward for me. That you can actually measure the impact, and and,
mm.
and not just football. Again, emotionally, you have some kids like you say they're recluse. Um, they don't talk much at first, and
Yeah.
then now it's 4 weeks, and they're laughing and they're interacting with their teammates, and guys are giving them nicknames, and they're part of the fellowship, right? It's the kid that can't even get into a 2 point stance, 3 point stance, and then 4 weeks later he's just firing out and he's just going, and it's the small victories, right? It might be the kid that's the. I always tell the kids on my team, I say, we're only good as our worst player. We're only as good as our worst player.
Yep.
So it'd be the kid. And let's be honest, kids know. They're like, okay, little Johnny ain't that good, but he's our guy. He's our guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you want to. That's the other thing you want to preach that to the kids because
Yes. Yes.
again, some coaches don't. Some coaches
Yeah.
do play favorites and all that, right? But what
Yeah.
I preach to my kids, listen, we're only as good as our worst guy. You know, we're only as good as our smallest dude. You know, and so when they do anything, I just shower them with the praise, right? Like, oh my God, he recovered a fumble.
Yeah.
Oh, like
Yeah.
yeah. So those moments are so exciting. Um, and seeing the kids buy in, also the buy-in is big too.
Yeah.
And you get to experience that every year. Because every year you're going to get some new kids. Maybe you get a lot of new kids. When I was coaching the older kids, I had it for 1 year. I was coaching 14-year-olds. So it was like every year I got a new batch,
Mm.
right? So seeing the point when they buy in, it might take you 3 weeks with some groups. It might
Yeah.
take you 8 weeks with a group, right? But okay, they get it now. This year with my 12-year-olds, we were having a problem with kids coming on time. And, I'm one of those, like, make sure my lines are straight because even in warm-ups, because alignment is such a big part of football, right? So
Yeah.
even when we just line up for drills or we line up for warm-ups, I'm like, make sure my lines are straight, everybody clap, ready, set, everybody clap, right, like that. And boy, for 4 weeks, bro, warm-ups were terrible because kids are coming in late. My lines are raggedy. I got to tell them 8 times, so we got to run, all this other stuff. And then it was just crazy. Like one day, I showed up to practice. I'm talking to the coaches, and they're all lined themselves up. They're all lined up in straight lines, just on their own.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just like, they get it, right? And then they're loud, and then guys start having leadership roles. Like, all right, come on, let's go. And you're like, okay, they're getting it.
Yeah.
Get it. And that's so rewarding to me. It's just seeing kids become young men, right? Yeah. Seeing them really buy into the character that we're looking for, right? The teamwork, the overcoming adversity, right?
Yes.
Building toughness of character and physical toughness.
Yes.
Like those things are what's so rewarding, and we get to see that almost every day on a 40-man roster or a 30-man roster, or even high school with a 55-man roster, right? Yeah. You see it every day. So that's what keeps me going. That's what's rewarding to me. And honestly, just to add this to it, when that is your reward, every season is easy. As opposed to when it's only about winning. If you're coaching and you're thinking, and I've met these guys, was like, I've had coaches tell me that I'm a winner. I just win. I'm like, okay, you ain't gonna win every game. You ain't gonna win every season. So are your highs, are your lows gonna be lower than they should be? Right? Or are you doing it for, like I said, for the right reasons? And when you are, then every season is a winning season. Right? Because you've seen the growth, you've seen the process, and okay, so this year we did win a championship, but man, these kids grew, right? And so that therein lies the reward for me. Yes, for sure.
I like that. That's dope, man. As we get ready to close out, I want to ask you one more question as we got into it, man. And I know we started off as the father-son dynamic, so I guess I would ask you, man, for a dad that's either coaching their son in any sport or they're currently coaching their son. What advice would you give them? Like, if there's one thing that they can really hone on to, what would be that?
There's one thing. I don't know if it's just one thing, but the most important thing again, I think, is be a coach only on the field. Now, if you're a father that their kid is playing a sport and he's under another coach, sure, when he gets home, you can look over film and tell him what he did wrong, what he did right, all that. But if you're actually on the field with him for those 2 hours or 3 hours or however long the practice is, leave it at that. Leave it at that. Because you know what? Most of the other kids aren't having to deal with that at home.
Yeah.
Right. That's for one. And two, you don't want the lines blurred. Because he has responsibilities at home too, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're always coach and you just never turn that off, you're going to start getting pushed back. Your relationship's going to start faltering. He's going to stop listening to you at home too. When they shut out, they're going to shut out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to see these things before I was in a position to coach my son.
Yeah.
So I was able to say, okay, this ain't going to work. I can't do that. So I would say keep coach and dad separate as best as you can. And when you get home, just be 100% an encourager. Just celebrate all the wins.
Yeah.
There'll be enough flaws and losses and stuff that in the actual coaching capacity that you'll have to deal with, right? So don't bring those home.
Yeah.
I used to tell the parents in the parent meeting, listen, don't ruin everything I did in practice on the car ride home. Right? Because they'll do it. They're like, oh man, you should have done this, you should have done that, or and sometimes the other way, right? Just all this praise when he's really been messing up all the time, right?
Yeah.
So as a father of your own child, you really got to stick to that. It got to be, once I take these pads off, the whistle's off, we're in the car ride, Now we talking about other stuff. We ain't on football no more. We ain't on.
Yeah.
We're talking about, okay, how was your day? How was school? You know, we laugh and we joke. We got the music on. We on some other stuff.
Yeah.
I think that again, the main thing is the main thing, and that's keeping your relationship with your child intact.
Mm.
And so that would be my number one piece of advice.
I like that, bro. That's good, man. I can't remember. I know I've seen. I think like a podcast or something. Is that your podcast you be posting sometimes?
Yes, I'm a
Okay.
Bible study podcast.
Okay. Yeah. I plug that in, man. So those people, you know, what I
Winning
mean,
with the
they
word,
interested.
winning with the word on YouTube right now. I only have like 3 episodes up later because it's football season. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely start popping out more episodes in November. But yeah, it's just a word based biblical podcast. There's a lot of things on Christian YouTube that are
Yeah.
mainly condemning people, pointing out error in other Christians, and we're not on that. We're on, you know, relevant topics to
Yeah.
Christian walk and what does the Bible say about that,
I
right?
like that.
So that's what we've been doing. So that's the plug. Winning with the Word podcast.
I like that. And I'm gonna make sure y'all. I'm gonna put the link in the Apple. You'll be able to click on Apple. I'll put it on the YouTube as well. So I'll get his information so y'all can click on and subscribe, all that good stuff, y'all.
Appreciate you.
Um, yes, sir, man. You know, I appreciate you, bro. You know, like I said we haven't chopped it up in a minute, but I have been watching from afar and just seeing your beautiful family as they growing and seeing you grow too, man, in certain aspects, man, which is dope
Man,
to see. You know
man,
what I mean? So I love it, bro. You know, you leading by example. You being the leader of the household, man, which I love.
thank
Um,
you.
but
Thank
yeah, bro, I appreciate your time like always. You know, and so man, for all y'all, make sure y'all like, make sure y'all subscribe, tell a friend, of course, and remember, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. We'll see you
you.
on the next one.